the Around the NFL podcast. It's Bongos time!
From the Chris Wessling Podcast Studio, it's Around the NFL, the flagship program, Week 9. Dan Hanzus here with heroes Gregg Rosenthal and Marc Sessler. And boys, I have to say, came in to the office today, or I should say, settling in for the 10 a.m. or the 1 p.m. Eastern games today. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. I do not know, because let's face it, the KC-Miami game had a nice ending, but it wasn't kind of what we were expecting or hoping for, which was like a glorious shootout. And then I looked at 6 rookie quarterbacks starting on the slate for Sunday. And even beyond those 6 rookies, a bunch of like backups or kind of journeymen dotted across the landscape. And I was thinking, this could be a bad Sunday.
Rough seas.
And then, Greggy, the game started, and we got some bangers. I think this is one of the most exciting Sundays we've had in 2020.
I think this is the best Sunday. Not only does it have the most big games, so that's important. And I think the Dolphins-Chiefs was intriguing in that it felt like a big game, and we'll get into all that. But if one Sunday deserves bongos just as a Sunday, this is it. Someone hit it.
Yeah, I think there's almost no close second place. I mean, it delivered in ways that I think, to the point where this is the first Sunday that I recall the three of us gathered around Dan's screen watching the end of one of these games, holding hands, embracing together. That hasn't happened a lot in the late window.
We love football!
NFL is kind of undefeated when you can get mini classics out of Texans, Bucks, and what was the other one? Vikings, Falcons in Week 10.
Yeah, some unexpected bangers today. But yes, I think everyone expected Philly, Dallas to bring the goods. And it did. So why not start there? Let's head to Philly, where the Cowboys were looking to make a statement and the Eagles were looking to keep pace or maintain pace atop the NFC.
Eagles are 5 seconds away from going 8-1. Will it happen? Prescott back again. He steps up. He pumps. He fires. It is caught, but he's tackled. Tackled to C.D. Lamb at the 2-yard line, and the game is over and the Eagles win.
What a heavyweight fight we've witnessed. This is great football.
There you go. Merrill Reese and Mike Quick with the call, WIP. It was a great fight. We talked about it on Thursday. It's like, hey, Dallas, win a game and make a statement, or go back and forth, show up. And they certainly did, but ultimately, despite the Eagles kind of doing everything they could down the stretch to blow that game, the Cowboys, and this was a theme in this game, just were falling short time and time again, ending with that C.D. Lamb reception and tackle inside the 5-yard line. Final score, Eagles 28, Cowboys 23. Mark, a lot of places to go here.
Yeah.
But it is that frustration. So many places, Mark, to go here as you begin the show. But it's that Cowboys, that pain. Mark had some anxiety about starting.
I did not at all.
The whole show rides on you nailing the tone of
I don't
Cowboys
need to nail
Eagles,
anything.
and summing it all up succinctly.
Sure. Well, we'll see if that happens. That's not my skill set, but
and we're going to go through them. But the Cowboys had so many little micro moments where they could have stole this one, and yet they fell short each and every time.
There were, because I think the theme when we previewed this was, to your point, okay, asking for a win out of pocket or everything else is worthless is a lot, but don't go and fold the tent out of the gate. And they did not. I thought you got a really high-quality game out of Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb gives you 191 yards. I mean, a lot of what you were asking for happened, but there was this ongoing tussle with the football gods and demigods and various mythological figures in this one. And there were these Cowboys moments.
Nymphs as well.
Nymphs,
yeah.
You name it. Elven creatures. There was all happening above the field here.
Trolls under bridges.
Trolls, yes. The whole kit and caboodle.
You're doing great so far. Keep going.
Yeah, we're right on. No, but I think it started to me, it started with these little moments, Luke Schoonmaker getting down on 4th and goal from the Eagles 1. It's 28-17 at that point with 10 minutes to go. And it's the Cowboys on the next drive, they score a touchdown after forcing a punt. But it's 28-23, and you get this moment where Dak Prescott is racing towards the end zone on the 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point game. and his foot just goes out of bounds. And it's like, it clouds what has been a really good Dak performance. On the next drive that they have, it is still 28-23. It's 4th down, and Dak has it is the rare bad throw in this game where he's not aiming at CeeDee Lamb, but Jalen Tolbert, it's an off-kilter toss out of bounds. The Eagles get the ball back. There's about 1:07 left at this point when DeAndre Swift fumbles the ball, but the Eagles recover.
Right.
They still are forced to punt. Dallas then gets the ball back with 46 seconds. They go on a drive that is sort of a maddening drive. It had like 5 plays and 5 penalties on both teams, and it ends with that play we just heard with CeeDee Lamb short of the goal line on 3rd and 26 to end the game. But like, even though these things went against Dallas, it felt like the Eagles were inviting the Cowboys to take the game away from them in those final minutes.
It was 3rd and 26 because Dak gets sacked on back-to-back plays. And Greg, the Eagles allowed 56 yards of penalties that allowed the Cowboys to get to the 6-yard line. And these are penalties not just bad in terms of, not taking care of business at the end. It was stopping the clock and making what seemed like would be almost an impossible ask on the Cowboys on that last drive, where they really seemed to be in the driver's seat and they just couldn't get it done.
Right. Bradbury gets hurt on the first DPI. He's been having a bad year. There was just a mental mistake by Hassan Reddick. There was an encroachment by Carter. And yet I look at this game and it's a fun game to analyze because I think every aspect of both teams had great moments and bad moments. So it's not easy to like pin blame or this guy's the hero, but ultimately it's another game where at the very end of the game, it's Philly's pass rushers who make the biggest plays in the game. The 2 biggest plays in the game to me are those 2 back-to-back sacks. And when it comes down to it, they have so many different ways that they can win games. And we've seen it this year. They haven't been able to run the ball the last 3 weeks, and they've been able to survive that. And it's Carter, and it's Josh Sweat, and it's Brandon Graham like it ever was. I was getting flashbacks to the Patriots Super Bowl with that play that Brandon Graham almost ended the game. I thought Dak did a nice job even just holding on to the ball. And yeah, the Cowboys are going to be really wishing that they had taken these opportunities because I think they played the Eagles well. But it's just not surprising to me because Philadelphia has so many different areas, and it's always those guys up front on defense that end up closing it out.
Let's talk about some injuries that the Eagles incurred in this game. Jalen Hurts will start here. He gets whacked in the knee right before the half, and he limps off the field. They show him coming out of the tunnel after the half, and he's got a real limp, and it's like, uh-oh, what's going on with him? He promptly leads them right down the field for a touchdown after the game. Didn't make anything of it. But it was a scary moment for them. They also appear to have lost Dallas Goedert, one of their most trusted targets. The tight end went down hard on his arm after the game in the locker room. You saw him in a sling, and it looked like he's going to be missing significant time as well. So they don't get out of this clean. We mentioned the secondary injuries on that last drive. So Philly paid the price, but they're 8-1.
They get a bye.
They're going into a bye now to get healthy. They're 8-1, and the Cowboys are now 5-3. And it does, although this was a much better Dallas showing than we saw against San Francisco. God, you start to get that feeling if you're on the Cowboys, like, are we ever going to get over the hump against these guys?
Yeah, because in a long season, there's real estate that can be made up down the road, but losing this game puts you in a tough spot, puts everyone in a tough spot in the NFC East. And we're not too far away to think about which one of these teams is going to get that one bye. And it's like, this was a kind of a necessary lever pull for Dallas, I think, to make a statement and make up ground. And the opposite happened. And yet I don't come out of it. I come out of it with more faith that this version of a Dallas team could win games on the road in the playoffs. If you get this, except they still feel like it does come down to these final moments. And it's like, I want to trust them. I do trust them more after this game, but Philly seems like an almost impossible foe in terms of their matchup.
Well, Dak's playing really well. They end up gaining.
He played awesome, I thought.
I thought it was great.
I think he's been near perfect for 3 weeks, although that one throw to Tolbert, really, it was a big spot, and it was like the one really bad throw.
Greggy, that's what I've been talking about.
And decision.
CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I know he's been huge the last 2 weeks for them, but this guy cannot be covered in this game. He's in one-on-one coverage in the end zone. Give CeeDee Lamb a chance to win a jump ball and win that ball game.
In that one spot, yes, but they did target him 16 times. It wasn't like he was.
And Ferguson is stepping up as a real guy. I mean, he has replaced Dalton Schultz, and maybe not extra, but he's at least replaced Dalton Schultz. They have certain things to be proud of. I did think their defense was disappointing, especially in the third quarter. But in the first half of this game, Dallas is putting up touchdowns, and the defense is just letting Philadelphia do the same right back. And the Eagles get touchdowns in 4 of their first 6 drives. But you can't kill them that much when they force 3 3-and-outs in the fourth quarter to set it back up for the offense. And so that's why I look at this, and both teams have a lot to work on and a lot to improve. But you said the 1 seed. Look, Philadelphia's next 3 games before they play Dallas again is at Kansas City, and then Buffalo, and then San Francisco. So we could be in a different situation before that Sunday night game against Dallas.
And I'll throw out the next 2 games for Dallas, or maybe against the 2 worst teams in the league, or 2 of the 3 worst teams. You got Giants on their 14th string quarterback, and then at Panthers. So, if they could have found a way in this game, they really would have had some momentum, and then who knows where this division goes. It's still wide open because the Eagles, as much as you cannot take away anything from a team that has 1 loss as we get deeper into November, you don't sense that this is a juggernaut. This is a team that still has some things to work out if they want to actually hoist the trophy.
Yeah, but they're figuring it out and winning as they go too. They can.
That's what I said.
Better. They're healthy.
You can't demean them for that, because that's one of the hardest things to do, is to win while you're not playing your best ball. But I don't get the feeling that they're playing at a high level, at least compared to what we were seeing from them last year.
Well, I think that they keep getting compared to themselves from a year ago, and you're right. And they were such a contrast last year's team to the Eagles team from the year before, and so we want what happened last year, and it's been imperfect, but I love the bye coming up right now, because I don't know, Jalen Hurts has been testy when been asked about his knee, and when he went down today, I did not look good to me at all.
Well, and he looked slow on a play before that knee injury even happened, where I forget which Dallas defender ended up running him down, but I'm just thinking that would not have happened if he is healthy.
I don't know if a bye solves all that, but it couldn't come at a better time because they're banged up all over the place, and Goddard was playing really well for them.
24-3 with Jalen Hurts as the starter. That's including the playoffs and the Super Bowl.
Damn good.
So it's even better in the regular season. But 24-3, I think winning becomes a habit. They're winners. They find different ways to win. They can win any style of game. If they're not running the ball like they haven't been able the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think that's concerning, but they still can find a way.
They have the same DNA as the next team we're about to talk about, a team that did outlast them just barely in the Super Bowl, where when it does come down to those last couple minutes, the crucible, they always seem to find a way. That is the Kansas City Chiefs' MO. Let's head to Germany. Good job, Mark.
2nd and 7.
Very nice.
Or the Dolphins at the Kansas City 30. Chiefs lead 14-0. They'll throw it in the near side. Tyreek Hill hit right in the stomach. Fumbles it.
Oh, no.
Kansas City. Tyreek Hill catching a fumble recovery up the sideline. Here comes Mike. It's in
He's high-stepping.
10-5 touchdown. Kansas City. Mike Edwards hit Tyreek Hill right in the stomach. The ball came out, and Brian Cook would not let the play in.
Welcome to Germany. Chief safety. Turn this up.
All day long.
Chief safety Brian Cook took a fumble return 59 yards for what turned out to be the decisive touchdown. The Chiefs are up 21-0 after that late in the first half. They hang on for a 21-14 win over the Dolphins at Deutsche Bank Park in Frankfurt, Germany. Great vibe there, great scene. Great job by Rich and Orlovsky and McCourty and the whole crew there. That was a good vibe, good game, fun. The comeback fell short when Tua Tagovailoa could not handle a snap on 4th and 10 from the KC 31 with 1:03 to play. Greg, this game was, again, it's hard to, it's confounding watching the Chiefs this year because everything is so hard on offense, and we're right now back into this. It's 2 weeks in a row where you're just watching and you're like, man, Mahomes is going on and off the field, and the punter keeps coming out. And I thought it was an interesting, it was kind of funny, quite frankly, moment when before their last possession, their last real possession, they had done nothing in the second half, and there were about, I want to say, around 3 minutes left. Don't hold me to that. It was about 2 to 4 minutes left, but I think it was around 3 minutes left. And they come back and they say, Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator, called the Chiefs over and had a spirited spirited things to say. He was fired up, and he was basically, you could probably guess the context, saying, I know we've sucked in the second half, but let's close this goddamn game out because we're the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
They
went 3 and out again.
Yep.
And they had to
With
lean
a
on their
totally
defense.
curious third down play call there, too.
Bizarre. I don't know. So there were a lot of things where I was just like scratching my head about what's going on with the Chiefs. But anyway, the defense got the big stop in the end, and it was the defense that saved them. It's the defense, Greg, that has, this team, in position again for home field advantage, but it's hard not to think about the other stuff.
It is, but they're symbolic of this season. Like, these are the two best teams in terms of seeding heading into the day in the AFC. This was a showpiece game. I mean, the NFL Network looked at this at the beginning of the season. They thought, ooh, this could be great. And it ended up being a winner. But like the rest of 2023, defenses are winning. Like, points are down, yards are down, big plays are down. Everything is down. And even in a game like this, it's kind of about the defense. The Kansas City blitz forced panic from Tua Tagovailoa on that fourth down play with all the movement that was happening before the snap in the offensive line. And that was the case for most of the day. They lead the NFL in negative EPA created when they blitz. And you saw it on the last 2 drives. The Dolphins got 2 different chances after they had already caught up 21-14, which was largely because of their defense, holding the Chiefs under 50 yards, 50 in the second half, forcing a turnover on Mahomes, which gave him a short field, and they took advantage of that. And they give him 2 different chances in the fourth quarter to go make a drive. And the Dolphins are driving on one of them, and Willie Gay hits Ahmed for a -6, and that was on a run blitz. And then Tua sacked the very next play for 11 yards. That ruins one drive. Then they get the ball back. Mostert hits it for over 40 yards on 2 runs. And it's the blitz again, those next 4 plays a couple times that gets to him and disrupts him. And I kind of wished I'd seen Raheem Mostert again because he was cooking at that point. And I do wonder if McDaniel regrets that because ultimately their passing game was out of sync and had a lot of self-inflicted wounds, but a lot of it was because the Chiefs were making them overthink.
Yeah, the Dolphins, atypical to everything else we've seen this season, except when they seem to play Super Bowl contenders, did not convert a third down until 6 minutes left in the third quarter. And it looked like it. And it's like, I thought this was one game where Tua and Miami kept getting into 2nd and long, 3rd and long. They were not making the plays
they couldn't
like they
run
did earlier.
for 3 quarters.
They couldn't do much. And this is a star, even though defenses might be, trending up across the league, we ask questions about Kansas City's offense week after week, and that's fine, but they have a Super Bowl level star defense. Trent McDuffie has been out of this world, and these guys are making plays. And I thought that today, Steve Spagnuolo, to basically undo Miami's passing game the way they did, was a real feat. And it leaves me with some questions about Miami because when they've had to go and play the better teams, this offense has not shown up the way it has against lesser competition.
The offense hasn't been good enough against good teams.
They're now 0-3 against every big team they've faced, and they can and Dolphins fans go like,
and their defense
that's
played
just
great today. By the way, their defense played outstanding.
It was their best defensive showing, I thought.
And they say, that's just everyone's talking about that. It's like, well, it's true. That is now 3 true Super Bowl contenders you faced, and they've all beaten you. And this one, at least you made it interesting, but you got your butt handed to you at the half, and then weren't able to dig out of the hole. And yeah, you got to put the loss on Tua ultimately, I think, because there are 2 plays. Again, if you want to be seen as a contender, you need to get bigger when the moment rises. When the crucible of a game arrives late in the game, he has Cedric Wilson wide open for a touchdown, and he boofs it. He throws some type of moon ball up there.
It was a miscommunication. He clearly thought Wilson was gonna look at the coverage, break off the route,
and he was wide open. He beat his man and was waving his hands and didn't get close to him. And then right after that, he's unable to hold on to the snap, and that leads to the turnover. Here's Tua on those 2 plays that essentially decided things.
With what happened with me and Ced, that was just miscommunication. And, in big-time moments, those things like that can happen. So, I got to throw a better ball. It was just miscommunication there. And then with the last play of the game, I'm always going to blame myself. I got to catch the ball. So whether that's getting in a in a better position to catch it or whatever it is. Can't end the game like that when we have an opportunity like that against a really good team.
And I'm not going to flame Tua like overly because, listen, ultimately it was against a very good defense, and the snap could have been better. And if there's a miscommunication there is. But at the same time, you have to find a way in that spot, and he didn't, and they didn't.
No, they're an offensive team, and they were sloppy. Sometimes the game is lost in the first half. Like, Tua's best throws of the day were totally blown by his teammates. They also had injuries on the offensive line. I think about the great back shoulder he had to Tyreek Hill, except in the first half, except there was an illegal shift on Cedric Wilson where he just like messes it up. That's points, Dan. Like that's either 3 points or 7 points. They were inside the 25 at that point. I think of the beautiful ball Tua threw to Tyreek Hill that he just dropped. Those were points. That was in field goal range. That brings it back. And then you think on the other side, not that there was incredible offensive execution, but sometimes it's the little plays, and Rashee Rice making that diving play on 3rd and 5 near his own end zone to keep a drive going when they were really struggling. That ends up turning into a touchdown. It's kind of a boring answer, but it's like they just executed better. Like the Dolphins' offense had a lot more mistakes than the Chiefs did.
It does not look this way in the box score, but I thought that the Chiefs, there were little moments of hope where they got some helping hands, because the Dolphins defense, Vic Fangio did a nice job of essentially removing Travis Kelce from this game. But Kadarius Toney had little moments. Sky Moore had a big catch on 2nd and 12. Jared McKinnon had that catch and run into the end zone. It's like, it's a start. Rashee Rice, I think, is like becoming the guy you hope he can become. And it's like, it doesn't look like a wholesale operation at this point, but it was better than other weeks considering Kelce was erased. Just in little moments.
I respectfully disagree. I thought it was more disheartening as the season's going deeper now, and it made me think about how, the trade deadline just happened, and they sat on their hands and didn't bring in another real weapon here. I thought Rashee Rice, he gets the touchdown on the first drive. He has that great catch there, and that's good. Those are the only 2 targets he had in the game. And there are other moments in the game where you're just like looking, who's going to make a play? The 3 and out after the Nagy come to Jesus conversation. It's 3rd and what, half a yard?
And that's sort of on Mahomes or the team.
And this is what, and Mark, you know this, that the Chiefs Browns playoff game a few years back on that ballsy call with the backup quarterback on 3rd and short. Like, they've had so many plays in their back pocket where they're confident they could execute a pass play in those situations. But the fact that was like no hope, I was like, who are these guys? And I don't know. I don't want to say, because Kelce could easily go off, Greg, for 10 for 205 and 3 their next game. So I'm not going to say anything.
Doubt him.
I'm just saying, like, there's been a lot more quiet games from him this year than last year, and he's 33 years old, and there's no one else around him that's truly picking up the slack.
You want to talk your shit? Talk your shit.
I got it, Travis, just a little bit.
I think I would not talk any, because look, he's
just
on pace for like 1,200 yards.
But we could say that all day.
It's the weapons around him. It's
I keep
not
on
him, though.
seeing
It's
that,
not him.
and I've thought the same thing. You mentioned on the Thursday show. You see it on Twitter. It's like everybody's going nuts about the Chiefs' offense, but they're 7th in DVOA, and they're just like, but it's like, no, they don't pass the eye test as a truly dangerous offense anymore.
I agree with that. It's the people around him, and I think that play at the end. At some point, you got to grow up and let Patrick Mahomes sneak the ball. The game was literally over. There was one player between the A and the B gap. There was one player between the center and the 2 guards. The Miami decided to set up in that spot like, we know you're not going to sneak it. Like, if that's Tom Brady, if that's Jimmy Garoppolo, if that's anyone, you're just tapping the center on the butt and you're going a half a yard and it's over. And Mahomes, they don't
like it.
They haven't done it once since he got hurt.
He got banged
doing
up.
it.
Yeah.
So you either got to be able to run forward with Pacheco for a yard, or in that scenario, you have to give him the choice to do it. One last thing I want to say on this game is I think Brett Veach is loving this game because Trent McDuffie made that play, and Trent McDuffie might make the Pro Bowl this year as a cornerback. And Trent McDuffie is on the Kansas City Chiefs in large part because they traded Tyreek Hill. They ended up making trades, so it's not as like thin, but as clean. But they got Trent McDuffie in the trade for Tyreek Hill, and this is the vision. Not that he's going to replace him, but here's the vision: we're going to get a couple picks, including 1 first-rounder, a premium player. They ended up getting McDuffie and Karlaftis in that draft, and those are 2 premium players.
They absolutely are, and that's one reason this defense is what it is. But flip side, I think Brett Veach would acknowledge, like, Yeah, not only have we not replaced Tyreek Hill, like it is potentially our Achilles heel this season.
You know what's gone? The BAPs, the big ass plays. They're just gone from the offense. And that's what Mahomes built his legend on. And he was able to win the Super Bowl last year in the MVP without BAPs also. But now you're stripping off another layer this year, and there's just
I hear you,
it's
but
not bad.
You play to win the game. It's 7-2. They're a different sort of team. They're a different sort of team.
I understand. Maybe I'm just you know what I wanted? I kind of wanted 41-38 today.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think Frankfurt wanted it, but you know what?
Yeah.
They ended up getting. I was worried when it was 21-0. I'm like, man, is this they gonna get a stinker? I can't.
And I was the one early in September saying, let's let the Chiefs figure this out. But I guess the reason I'm now with honking about this is it's like we're a little too late in the season now. And again, after the trade deadline, to still be asking when are they going to figure things out?
They are I would say because of the schedule, they're a sizable favorite to be the 1 seed.
You are less concerned than I.
Maybe, but
no, I'm just saying. Just they're 7-2 and their schedule, and
I hear you. You have every right to be confident in the team, and I like they're 7-2 with Mahomes and Reed, and things could be a lot worse. It's just a little strange watching them now. Just weird. All right, you know what else is weird?
I did like the ref making the call in German.
Oh yeah, do we
out of
have
the
that?
gate. I'm sure that was planned. Just
Firstad, offense, number 83.
I don't know. Are we going to have to be hooked on phonics for this game? Was that... Did he say false start in German? Did that just happen?
Rich. It's a VAR.
Oh, goodness. There's Chase Claypool moving.
that game happened about 27 hours ago.
It was.
Just came to my mind now, but like it seemed like they
6:30 a.m. kickoff.
I think they cooked that up probably before. Like the guy knew he would be saying that line, but there you go.
You know what else is weird? Remember on this very show, a Sunday late in the season when we were like freaking out because Lovie Smith, I don't even remember the circumstances anymore, but wild stuff went down that allowed the Texans to win a game that allowed the number 1 overall pick to go to Chicago.
Oh, Greg loved that game.
And it was the Texans now locked in at number 2, and there was so much freaking out about it because why would Houston win that absurd game and they're not going to get the guy that they want?
Davis Mills' finest moment against the Colts.
All right. And so that led to the Carolina Panthers trading for the first pick and getting Bryce Young, and we'll get to that later. And the Texans having to, quote, settle for C.J. Stroud. That feels like a very silly thought now.
First down to the Bucs 15. 10 seconds to go. C.J. gets the snap. C.J. looking, throwing to the end zone. Touchdown! Yes! The lead! Yes! Adele with the reception! Rock and roll! My goodness! What a comeback!
Oh, you got it.
Oh, it deserves it.
You got it. Strap. C.J. Stroud threw for 5 touchdowns and a rookie record 470 yards.
What?
The final yardage and touchdown coming on a brilliant touchdown drive when they were down 4 with less than a minute to go. And I love this quote. Shout out to the AP. Here's what he said. Give me the ball. Call the plays. I'm going to make the plays. And he did. The rookie lifting the Texans to a 39. Oh, keep it going, bro. Lifting the Texans to a 39-37 win over the Bucs. Let's welcome in a friend. Mark Vandermeer's got that rock and roll play call. We're going to start hearing that again. Nick Shook. We got you one and done today, but man, it's quite a one. CJ Stroud, he just locked up rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year. And I'm wondering where he's going to be on the next QB index. Top 8. Let's go.
It's tough that you'll do this to me right now. I mean, what was it sitting 12, 13 for a while? 470 yards. You just said it. The rookie record for most yards in a game. He also posted the highest next-gen stats passing score of any quarterback in the league on Sunday at 96. And it was a game that was absolutely fitting of that score. Can I explain that score to you? Not
Please
really.
do.
We don't have time
Okay.
for that. But no,
We got to keep moving. Yes.
doing that. Yes, exactly. Guys, this is a game in which the Buccaneers went to halftime in relative control. Okay. Let me just break this down for you real quick. They come out, they kick a field goal. It's 20-10 early third. From then on, they were outscored 29-17. The Texans drives from there. This is how stupid this is. From their first possession in the start of the third quarter, go touchdown, 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 field goal, kicked by a running back, Dario Ngumbawale, by the way.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Kaimi Fairbairn was
My
hurt.
goodness.
Punt, and then a touchdown drive that covered 75 yards in 40 seconds with no timeouts with a rookie quarterback. Okay, this was one of the greatest games I think I've ever seen, not because it was perfectly played football, but just because it was incredibly thrilling. It had everything, and the final play of significance made me shout in my future mother-in-law's spare bedroom at her house. Okay, that's the type of game it was.
Nicholas, are you okay?
Luckily, she wasn't here, but
I can't believe this Bucs defense too. Like it's a sign that the way they've constructed this roster, where like Carlton Davis is getting all this money and their defense is getting all there, and they're built on this defense. And Davis gets fried for 3 touchdowns in this game, and they give up 39 points to a rookie on the road. Like, even if they had found a way to win this game, it's sort of an indictment on the structure. Like, what is it about Stroud and Dell and Dalton Schultz, who was getting after it, and Noah Brown, who had a 75-yarder, and Nico Collins? Like, what did you see today from them that just like made this performance special?
It was interesting because the first half, it was a lot of CJ Stroud kind of hanging onto the ball for a while and not really being too sure of where he wanted to go with it. And then it started to open up with some deep passes over the middle, the deep ends, kind of the thing that you see Miami do so well. Houston started to do that well. But what was most intriguing to me was something that Charles Davis pointed out in the broadcast, which is that a sign of respect or appreciation for who CJ Stroud is at this point in his very young career was Todd Bowles calling off the blitz, which I think hurt them because he realized, I can't afford to sacrifice those defenders to create pressure. I need them in coverage, except Stroud sat back and picked them apart. I mean, dimes all over the field. It was poised. It's a lot of the stuff that we've talked about with Stroud for most of this season, but it was just amplified. 4th down, 4th and goal. They can't kick a field goal because they don't have a kicker. What does he do? He finds Dalton Schultz in the right corner of the end zone with a perfectly placed pass. They need a huge conversion late in the game. He drops a dime on Tank Dell. The next play, he throws the game-winning touchdown. It was that type of play from the second half on. It wasn't a 4-quarter performance. They went to halftime. He had 130 passing yards. He finishes with 470, an absolute second half explosion. It's halftime adjustments, and it's a guy really dealing with adversity and proving to be wise beyond his years, which has been the story for this season and why I think the Texans fans have every reason in the world to be so optimistic about their future.
And they've been so much better at home,
guy.
too. They have a nice little home
Everything changes for Texans fans. I mean, you have to win or lose. Like, what is happening right now is like a franchise-altering moment. And we came into this year kind of wondering, like, is CJ Stroud at a disadvantage? Because we have, if anything, we're curious about the lack of talent around him. They have 3 100-yard pass catchers today. They don't run the ball that really well. That doesn't matter.
They're terrible. They had 0 run game. They literally are the worst running team in the league.
This time it was Devin Singletary's turn, and absolutely nothing. 13 for 26.
Yeah, I think the thing I took away was after Baker Mayfield goes and does what he does. This is a rookie. The look in CJ Stroud's eyes was one of total calm, like on the sideline. Yeah. And then he just goes in there and like executes complete magic. And it's like, this is a quarterback that is, he is one of the biggest stories of the entire season. And this fan base was lost at sea. And now there's like intense hope.
And that's how quickly it can happen. And the Texans now, and quite frankly, before everything that turned his career into what it was or what it is now, they had a guy in Deshaun Watson that looked like it was the future. And some organizations walk the earth for decades looking for a guy, and they might have found another one here in Stroud. I never thought I'd live to see the day that Dalton Schultz went 10 for 130 in a game. 3 players on the Texans went over 114 yards receiving in this game, and it does cover up, because I want to just give them a little love here, that Baker and the Bucs offense had kind of been in a funk the last few weeks, and Baker led a great drive late in the fourth quarter to put them ahead, and it looked like it was a game-winning touchdown pass to Cade Otton, and it wasn't enough.
Yeah, the Buccaneers, I thought, finally kind of lifted themselves out of the doldrums offensively. A lot of that had to do with Rachaad White, who finally started to find some success on the ground. It started to happen, I think, in the week prior, but really picked up this time. He's also a good pass catcher. He totaled over 100 yards from scrimmage combined between those two efforts, and he found Mike Evans for a long pass that ended up on the goal line. Like, they were converting, they were keeping up. It's just that they gave Houston a little bit of a peek through the door, and they went right through the door. They just knocked it down. I'll tell you what, you talk about Deshaun Watson and how he had that period with them and how he was, a superstar and everything else. If it's me right now, if I had to pick between Deshaun Watson and CJ Stroud and building a franchise, this sounds hyperbolic, but I'm saying it definitively. It's CJ Stroud. The kid has an incredibly bright future. This is like a Justin Herbert level effect with the Texans, I think, that we're going to see.
I don't think that's a hot take. I think there's probably about 30 front offices that would be right there with you.
I think also like the Bobby Slowick, Shanahan-esque offense has this is a well-coached team, kind of all over. It's a complete sea change from what they went through the last 2 years. I
love this list, but I'm glad Stroud got to the top of this is a record, by the way. Most yards in a game. That's a big-time record. Especially because it's actually a lot of slightly older players that are at the top of the list. So I was like, wow, he's going to pass all these legends of the game. The list is kind of bizarre. Mark Bulger was next. But he was like an old, weird rookie that was somewhere else before. Aaron Brooks, underrated career, but still. Jeff Garcia, an even older rookie. He was like 30 when he was a rookie. I don't know what he was doing. And then Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore threw for 435 yards.
No, he didn't.
It was like one of those Week 18 games or 17 games where no starters were playing, I think. But yeah.
Have we heard from D'Amico Ryans on the show? Let's listen to D'Amico Ryans on his young star quarterback.
It's a gutsy performance from him, right? It wasn't all clean, but he gutted it out. He was tough in the pocket, made some plays, right? Made some big-time throws for us. And the receivers, they were reliable for him. They made those catches. They made tough catches, made big plays for us. So it's all those guys working together. But CJ was just a very gutsy performance by him.
And before we say goodbye to Shook, and good job, D'Amico Ryans, I think he's going to stick for more than 1 year.
Coach of the year.
It's funny how it works out. It's funny how you get Coach of the Year sometimes when, a quarterback falls into your lap like that. Not taking anything away from him, but that's pretty nice too.
Yeah.
It makes you look good having a great young quarterback. The Texans running back who kicked the field goal because the kicker was hurt. Say his name for me, Shook, so I don't mess it up.
Dare Ogunbowale.
Let's listen to the call on KILT.
Ogunbowale, the running back for the lead. Snap is down, the kick is up, and it's good! Dare Ogunbowale for 3, and the Texans are back in front! Are you kidding?
We may be watching the changing of the game today and how it's played and how rosters are filled out.
Yeah, that is a stretch.
Okay.
Well, I think at least we might have seen Gumbawale's career extended a couple years. Just like, let's keep him on our special teams for a while. We got a nice backup.
Was that
kicker.
a joke? I hope it was. I hope he was just having fun.
He's caught in the moment. He's enjoying himself.
Anyway, bottle service, Dare.
Yeah.
You could stay all night.
Yeah.
Joke. Thanks, bud.
Hey, he's got the best swag of any kicker in history with the dark visor. You'll never see that again.
You'll never see it again. It's such a good call. All right. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
Imagine Shook on in a nightclub. He would take up some real estate. His fist pumps, they'd knock you out.
I can imagine him working the front door.
Knock your ass out.
He would fit as he is a bouncer archetype.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But you could obviously see Shook in a bouncer role.
Yeah.
But imagine him owning the dance floor. And it's like people are giving him a wide berth because of his immense size and strength. But the ladies, they're still finding their way to
I
Shook.
feel like you've spent some time pondering this.
Let's move on. Let's head to the other big, fun, surprise, silly quarterback performance. It went down in Atlanta.
11th play of a 69-yard possession. Dobbs back to pass on 3rd down. He stays in the pocket, fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Brandon Powell, the former Falcon, has beaten the Atlanta Falcons with a 6-yard touchdown pass from Josh Dobbs. 30-28 Minnesota with 20 seconds to go.
Oh! He did it! Oh!
They say you never go double bongos.
You want double bongos?
Love it.
It's a big week.
Whew. I think it's worth it. These two games are they're bongos. They're bongo worthy.
This is like dropping the A-bomb and not like having any meetings beforehand. You just hit the button. But I like it.
But dropping it twice.
It was
Even my
bold.
mark.
But you know, it's interesting because you know I love the bongos. But actually, I think I would like you to play another song,
Wow.
if you may,
Producing
Eric.
from the chair.
And I think Eric knows what I'm talking about.
Mm.
Crank it.
Special honor.
Entering Sunday, I had already given up even the thought that it could be something that was still in play for 2023.
We said it was too late.
It felt like it was. And then a couple things happened.
Mm.
The Kirk Cousins injury, the spirited play of the Vikings in recent weeks, Josh Dobbs ending up on the roster, and then Josh Dobbs just, he doesn't even know the names of his teammates.
Never needs to.
But he knows how to make them winners. It's like a redo of what we saw with Baker and the Rams last year. The ubiquitous journeyman threw 2 touchdown passes, including a go-ahead 6-yarder to Brandon Powell with 22 seconds of play. He ran for a score 5 days as well, 5 days after being acquired in a trade. 31-28, outlasting the Falcons. And Greg, I'm not saying, this is, we have to vote on these things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting. It's interesting that the Vikings are supposed to be dead, and yet there's a lot to root for this team, including this quarterback who seems to keep Forrest Gumping his way into very interesting places in his life.
I mean, there is something about this team. They have got juice. They have got mojo, whatever you want to say. This player, Josh Dobbs, maybe he could just be the player of ATL. I mean, we've been honking about him all year, enjoying him, and what he did today was special. And the way that they talked about it after the game, that, look, he hadn't introduced himself to anyone yet. That O'Connell is literally describing the plays into the headset as he's talking to him. Like, okay, first, he's going this way and then do this and this, that. And Dobbs is able to process it all. And it's not because, like, oh, they had a change of heart and Jaron Hall was struggling, or that Dobbs ended up starting this game, surprisingly. No, Jaron Hall actually went down the field and looked quite good, the rookie quarterback, right off the bat. He was 5 for 6 for 78 yards and had a couple rushes, but he gets a concussion on a running play, and Dobbs comes in there after not taking any snaps all weeks, and his 4th down scramble to get away from Falcons defenders and eventually pick up the first down on the game-winning drive for 22 yards, to me was one of the NFL plays of the season, Mark.
It's almost like a redundant tale in the sense that Dobbs has done this 3 places now. And I mean, the one O'Connell did say, like,
but he didn't win the first ones in the other place.
No,
he?
but this is
He just was like
Tennessee last year,
right? But
Arizona this year.
Right,
and
he was like like respect. He played well and gave
he
a
did,
good.
but there was a
showing,
drum
but,
beat
like,
of
this
this
one
play.
finishes too.
There was a drum beat of this play in Arizona, and I know that it was like, oh, we don't lift enough with the Cardinals and stuff, but it was like Dobbs was doing this, especially on the ground. I mean, we even had like an NFL Plus segment about Dobbs' ground ability. It's like he led them in rushing today.
Who anchored that segment?
You.
I just say I, because
but it's a team effort. But like,
it was very flashpoint focused of you.
Well, also, I was thinking we did it like, well, this is going to get snowed under because it's not timely. He may not even start this week. But bang, like the NFL gods said, that will not be the way it is. I would back this as team of ATL in a second, because we're right back to them winning strange one-score games with a quarterback who's got a little bit of magic to him, and it doesn't matter what's happening around him.
I mean, do you want to? I mean, in terms of like the story around it, 2 weeks ago you nominated them for the Fork, and that was when they still had Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
There's something
But
interesting.
you did?
I don't recall that, but
Does anybody remember anything
Oh
we do
yeah,
on the
that's
show?
right. That's right.
Let's sit on this for a couple days.
Okay.
And
Well,
we'll
I would just say
adjourn.
the team we just
Yeah.
talked about, the Texans, are in that world for me too. So
well, they're very
you know,
similar. They're both angling for the 7
good.
seed right now.
Let's come back to that on Wednesday's show. How about that? But yeah, Jaron Hall, poor kid. He does look pretty good early on, and then he makes a fateful decision to believe that his legs and the speed that he had in college was enough to get to the pylon in the NFL, and gets absolutely destroyed at the goal line, which leads to him leaving the game quickly and sets it up for Dobbs. And it's very easy to just do like the gloss it over version of this and be like, Dobbs was amazing. But he was a nightmare early on, and it felt like it was
Took a safety.
He took a safety, and then he had really bad ball security and lost a fumble immediately after that. That set up Atlanta 1st and goal from the 1. Of course, they didn't score a touchdown, and of course, they didn't give it to Bijan Robinson 3 times at the goal line in that spot. But
maddening.
That's the Falcons.
Oh, but at least they got it to Jonnu Smith twice there. Tried to.
But once Dobbs got settled into the game, that's when he really started to cook, and it's just a credit to him because that's a nearly impossible situation. So, credit to the Vikings, who started 0-3, and they are in playoff position in the NFC, and they've done it without Justin Jefferson for a month, and he's going to be. I think he could come back as soon as next week.
He could. I think the latest reporting calls some question whether it'll be that quick, but we'll see.
And they lose KJ Osborne to a concussion in this game as well. Running back Cam Akers, who's already dealt with an Achilles injury in his career, had another Achilles injury in this game.
That is the.
So I don't know if it's the end type of Achilles injury, but that doesn't sound great at all.
Their left tackle got hurt during the week. Darisaw, who's a Pro Bowler and ended up getting downgraded on the injury report. They didn't have him either, and they won.
So from 0-3 to 5-4, and it was a fun game to watch, and it just shows you. The power of these games sometimes where you just don't know what's going to happen. I don't even know how they were competitive, the Vikings, and they win somehow.
I've got a theory. Their opponent, that they were playing the Atlanta Falcons, a team that looks at opportunity and looks at great players, and they just find a way to blow things. And Heineke. You watched it closer than me, but I was keeping an eye on this one because I was just fascinated by it. He made some mistakes, but he made some good plays too. Like they were running the ball. Like this is a team that I just don't trust them. It was why I said it on the preview. I was like 4.5 points is way too much for this Falcons team against any team with some self-belief. And there's something about him that's just bad vibes.
Was Heineke was there an uptick over Ritter, or is it just like the Heineke we've seen?
Definitely an uptick because I think Ritter is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Heineke is he was true to form basically.
Yeah.
What Greg said is true is that he plays with that. He plays with more confidence than perhaps he should. And he threw the ball a lot. He pushed the ball downfield. He had a very bad interception in the third quarter that really hurt them. They really is a game that
also had a game-winning drive. Like they should have won the game. They go up 4 with 2 minutes to go after like their best drive of the game.
And they had multiple opportunities that 1st and goal from the 1 as an example. And there were different spots in this game where they should have really took control, and instead they left the door open, which is like the opposite of like the Eagles and the Chiefs of the world. Like middling teams or poorly coached middling teams always seem to find a way to let teams back in and blow games, and I think things are evening out for the Falcons after kind of being on the lucky side of the ledger early on.
This NFC South is gross. And this 7 seed for Minnesota, it's attainable. You look at their schedule. If they can settle Dobbs in there, I'm assuming he'll keep the starting job if Hall gets healthy, but who knows?
You got it now, right?
Yeah, I don't think you should.
Because this is all I think
they were excited about Hall, and then they were excited how that went. So it was a tough break for him as a rookie. But yes, I think.
But now that you saw it, saw Dobbs. The thought in that building now is, okay, now let's get him comfortable. Let's actually hear him, he can learn some of the names of his teammates. Let's actually hear Josh Dobbs introduce himself at his post-game presser.
What's up, y'all? Josh Dobbs, honored to be in Minnesota. Introduce myself to everyone.
Whoa, class act.
What a flex.
And you mentioned that this is not the first time he's been thrown into active duty out of nowhere.
That's all he does.
He's comparing this to when he got thrown into the playoff, basically a play-in playoff game last January. Here's what he said about that.
Last year in Tennessee, we had, per se, a couple first-team reps. We put on a Thursday, so played Saturday to a Thursday game, so a quick turnaround late in the season, second to last week of the season. So didn't get a ton of reps, but we at least got 2 walkthroughs, a chance to communicate, get on the same page. This one was kind of like learn as you go, hair's on fire, hold on to your seat. But guys were able to respond. Obviously being in a similar situation allowed me to be able to, not be too prideful, communicate when I don't know what's going on, but also tell the coaches, hey, what I need to be successful.
That is a fiery leader, and nice job by the Cardinals giving away your best quarterback.
Well, I don't think they regret it.
I think Kyler Murray's probably a little better.
Not anymore.
That'd be my guess.
Don't agree.
I think they're angling to get an even better quarterback in April.
See how that works.
I think everything ended in its right place, which is Dobbs in the middle of a playoff race. All right, let's take a break. See, let's ruminate. Let's just let that sink in. Team of around the NFL nominee, Minnesota Vikings.
Got some candidates
and some competition. All right, let's take a break. All right, we're back. It's time now for the Sunday Drive presented by the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Hit it, Eric.
Mark Andrews alone, split to the left. Inside handoff. Keaton Mitchell breaks the tackle. He's to the 35, 30. Leg race 20. Rookie to the 10. Touchdown, Ravens. Keaton Mitchell. And with 29 seconds left in the third quarter, the hay's in the barn.
Oh. Hey, that was Jerry Sandusky, of course. WBAL. Hey, Keaton Mitchell, you're a celebrity now. The 5'8", undrafted rookie from East Carolina. A child, practically, who had 0 NFL carries before Sunday, ran for $138 and his first pro touchdown, and the Ravens absolutely hammer. Gregg's beloved Ravens absolutely hammer Gregg's beloved Seahawks 37-3. Gregg, I think I kind of hinted at it on Thursday. I didn't love your decision to lock against Geno because you've been kind of defending Geno for weeks.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of maybe getting a little contrarian, like and pushing back against this idea that Geno hasn't been playing well.
Yeah.
And then I didn't see this game, but it doesn't appear that Geno played well once more, and the result, in part, is a total blowout.
I'm with you, but I think if Geno is your main takeaway, you've got a major agenda.
I'm just saying the fact that you locked against Geno after telling me for a month straight that you're not watching the game.
I locked it because I think the Ravens are the best team in the league. That's I think it's not even that close, and so I'm going to be locking them when I can. They're going up two teams, a 6-2 team.
You put us in a tough situation, that's all.
Some would say it was, foresight. 515 yards to 151. I haven't seen two lines as uneven in this NFL season. The Ravens ran for 7.7 yards per carry today, not counting the 2 kneel downs at the end. They had They had 300 yards before the kneel downs. Keaton Mitchell is a dude. He had more yards over expected than any runner in 3 years in this game.
Where was this guy in the practice squad?
He was hurt earlier in the year, an undrafted rookie that they had some high hopes for, I believe. And then he, kind of getting ready to play. In almost every one of his runs, he broke a tackle or showed really special speed. Gus Edwards is obviously running really well. They are a truly dominant offensive line right now.
They're on a heater.
And that's kind of why I'm just with the Ravens, because they have two dominant lines. They have the offensive line that did that. Then they have the defensive line, which held Seattle to a 1.9 yards per carry. So right there, the running game, it's all over there. Geno Smith was harassed. He was sacked. He made bad decisions, certainly in this game, but the pocket was collapsing on him almost every play in the first half of this game. And when they didn't, they batted down his passes 3 times to end drive. So this thing was a total woodshed situation, but they're scary. 29 first downs, Mark, to 6. And that is not about a quarterback. It's not about Lamar or Geno. It's not about anything other than one team just beating the ever-living crap out of the other team on both sides of the ball.
Beating the ever-living crap out of a good team from the NFC. They also
a good run defense, too, by the way, going into this game.
Right. They shattered the Lions. They've done this weeks later. And this was a team that, came into the season with a new offense, and it looked that way even when we were back in London. They look a completely different team at this point. And it's like, we're in November, if you can control the offensive line and the defensive line this way, there really is probably no ceiling to them. I mean, Seattle's had a number of games where they ran the ball really well, and it's like 1.9 yards per carry. Kenneth Walker completely removed. And you've got guys like, if you're the Ravens, Keaton Mitchell out of nowhere becoming a star. Your pickup Kyle Van Noy having a big game. It's like they are doing everything right, and you didn't need to put everything on Lamar Jackson alone today. He's got all these pieces around him. Very scary situation for the AFC North and the rest of the AFC.
Lamar didn't even play in the fourth quarter, so you get they had more sacks than points allowed in this game, and it just this is Greg. If you're a Ravens fan, you just want to make sure this keeps rolling and you're not peaking too soon, because right now it's, if I was still in the power rankings game, this team has a very real case now to be number one for the play they put together, really going back now about a month.
Right. It's them getting healthier, I think, on the offensive line was step one. And even in the secondary, they have gotten healthier. A lot of those, they had so many injuries early and they were surviving him, and then they get these guys back. But you mentioned Van Noy, Matabike, like Brandon Washington. They're all controlling it. And Tony Romo, I think, did a good job describing why Mike McDonald's so tough to play against, the defensive coordinator. Just that every snap, they're like lining up. They look the exact same. And then they scramble you by moving post-snap and mixing up the coverages and being so unpredictable. I think that's really good against good mental quarterbacks like a Geno Smith, where Geno's just holding the ball and doesn't know what he's seeing. And I think that bodes well for matchups against the Burrows and Mahomes and Josh Allen, that it gives you a chance that they're a really well-coached. It's not just about talent. They're a really, really well-coached defense. The only defense, Dan, that has a better percentage of, since the merger, of touchdowns allowed per drive is the 2000 Ravens. That's where the 2023 Ravens are right now. I'm not saying they're that good. Schedule's a big part of it, but when they've played pretty good offenses, Seattle and Detroit, they've laid it on them too.
Geno completed fewer than 50% of his passes, threw an interception.
Lost the fumble too.
That
one wasn't really on him, but he could have had another interception.
Are we about to go to our third Ravens Super Bowl in our time here, Dan?
No.
Well, we don't know that.
That's 4 straight games for Geno with at least 2 turnovers in a row. So listen, Drew Lock's is back up, so we're not there yet, but he's got to start cleaning things up. We'll see if he does. But, man, Ravens, man, they're good. You don't want to peak early, though. You don't want to peak early.
You don't want to peak early, but you also want to win your division. You'd love to get as high a seed as possible.
I know. You know who's nervous about the Ravens? Guy in the black jacket right there.
Why?
The Browns are up next.
I mean, they shattered the Browns a couple weeks ago. I think the Browns should be nervous. I don't feel too much about it. Like, we'll see what happens there.
So we're just lying to each other now.
No, but it's like, I mean, go take care of business if you're for real. We'll get to the Browns down the road.
All right, let's keep moving. I mean, the lock competition's over. I mean, you are just you want to talk about hot.
I think it ended a couple weeks ago.
It's over.
Yeah.
Enough with this nonsense. Yeah. That's not true.
I mean, how many times have you lost so far?
1.
I mean,
we all lost it together, actually.
Give him a little round of applause. Give Greg the lock competition's already over. A November 5th round of applause.
Yeah, I stopped thinking about it around Columbus Day.
We've got like 60% of the season to go. We're 9 weeks.
I know, but Greg, that's how you'd answer
to
anything.
22 weeks out of 22 weeks.
This is about how we feel.
All right, let's head to the Superdome.
Saints up by 7. 2:16 to play in the football game.
Come on, Tyson, do something, kid.
Bring 4. Looking to throw, he's hit from behind, and the ball is out. The ball is out, still out. Foul on it. Pete Werner picks it up. Pete Werner has it inside the 20. The Saints get yet another turnover. Forced by Demario Davis, and then Pete Werner finally picked it up. Wow, what a huge play.
The Saints are a roller coaster. Mike Haas with the call there. WWL. This is a game that, they kept leaving that door open for the Bears. They should have closed the game out in a couple different ways in the second half, and they just couldn't do it because that's just this team that's in their DNA. But also in their DNA is when their defense gets hot, they cause a lot of ruckus, and they did against the Bears, forcing 5 turnovers, intercepting Tyson Bagent 3 times. They recovered 2 fumbles, and that final play was the difference in a 24-17 win. That was DeMario Davis sack, Pete Werner with the recovery. So the Saints get it done, winning the turnover battle 5-0. We'll typically do that. There was a crazy stat out there, Greg, that they're one of the few teams in the last 20 years, I want to say, that were +5 in turnovers and still didn't cover. And that tells a story of a team that didn't quite take advantage of all their great field position and what happened after those turnovers. But let's stay positive that the Saints, I believe, are in first place in the NFC South as we hit the midpoint of the season. And there's some things to be positive. On the offensive side of the ball, you have Chris Olave. We were talking about him on Thursday. Kind of rejoined us amongst the living. He had a touchdown. He made some plays. Derek Carr is playing mistake-free football. And Taysom Hill is really he's on a heater as well right now. He had a touchdown reception. He had a touchdown pass. And I feel like, Mark, they've found a nice little flow to this offense now where it's Carr, it's Taysom, it's Kamara, and a team that's had a lot of trouble in the red zone. You saw some of that starting to melt away in this game because they're starting to just kind of find their identity a little bit on offense.
At last. I don't like the game ending with downs, a punt, a missed field goal, and the end of the game there for the Saints. But I think you're getting it. I mean, Carr, if he's healthy, last couple of weeks, there's some hope there. I do think that they continue to be like a nasty secondary, and it helps to play a Bears team that I think has been better of recent weeks, but you're still dealing with Tyson Bagent. I mean, it's
right.
like this is that should be a gimme, and they're 5-4. They've got the third most wins in the NFC. I mean, but I don't know if I trust them at all.
I mean, Bagent puts up 220 yards, averages 7.3 yards per attempt. They actually outgained the Saints. They put
there were moments where
it's
Bagent
surprising
was actually moving the ball well, and he plays with the.
It's not like first half they did pretty.
Yeah, he plays with some swagger. Again, maybe a little bit unearned at this level, but still you like it. Like he obviously believes in himself, and but he started throwing the ball up for grabs, and that's never gonna end well. I want to give also a special shout out on the defensive side of the ball to cornerback Paulson Debo. The Defensive Player of the Week award, it's a wrap. 2 interceptions, he forced a fumble, and he recovered a fumble. So that's like the equivalent of like the EGOT, when you get the Emmy, the Grammy, the Oscar, and the Tony.
Yes.
I mean, that's for a defender. He did that.
If they gave that out weekly, but yes.
He is coming off as good a 2 games as a cornerback can possibly have. No doubt last week was the best game of Paulson Adebo's career. I was really surprised when he won the starting job over Lante Taylor. They ended up moving to the slot. That is a great cornerback trio with Adebo playing like this.
And so it sounds like Montez Sweat played well too, led the Bears in pressures.
Yep, he popped up here and then, not a dominant outing, but obviously he makes them better. And I thought in general, and Justin Fields is now throwing, so he's edging towards playing. They're on a short week this week, so you'll probably get one more Bagent start. But there were things to like. They looked like a professional offense in this game. Luke Getsy called a good game, but the turnovers just killed them, and that will do it.
We should mention Montez Sweat signed a monster extension.
You know what I loved about that?
I missed
that.
Last
week, it happened it's like last week he's like, yeah, I'm interested potentially, but I want to take a little bit of time and see.
Said that Thursday.
What I feel about, like my experience here, like bang, 2 days later, a ton of guaranteed money. Let's do it.
Yeah, here would you like 4 years and what was it, $98 million extension? And people are going crazy. It's like, oh, they paid too much. And it's like, oh, calm down.
What it costs.
It was first of all, it was the extension. So if you do the whole deal, it was like 20 per year. It's like, that's what they would he would have cost more than that in free agency. It's weird to be defending the Bears front office, but I have no problem with that trade, and definitely don't have a problem with that contract after the trade.
No, and he's a consistently
right. He's a good player.
A good player, and it'll look good in a year or two.
And my last thought on this game, bringing it back to Taysom Hill, who's 33 now, former BYU quarterback, a favorite of Wes back in the day. when he caught the touchdown in this game, he became the first NFL player since Giants Hall of Famer Frank Gifford, who retired, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, to score 10 or more times each as a passer, 11 times, runner 26 times, and a receiver 10 times. Dennis Allen said after the game, that's pretty impressive, right? Half the guys in our locker room would have no idea who Frank Gifford was. And sure enough, Taysom Hill was not aware who Frank Gifford was.
What?
And this would be the point where I would do that and I would get really up on my high horse about it. However, I'm like 25, 20 years younger or older than all these players, and I only really knew Frank Gifford because he was Kathy Lee's husband for the most part.
And like the Monday Night Football announcer, but yes, I mean,
so I can't get this. That was a long time ago, and it's more a tribute to how he is one of one in this league. You might not think he's like a big time player, but nobody else does what he does. It's
this year
cool.
He's a big time player. He led them in rushing today. By 20, he doubled Calvin Kamara. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous.
I mean, Sean Payton signed into those 3 or 4 contract extensions over the course of
I know
2
those
years.
contracts don't look as bad anymore. I'm like, actually, 13 a year is not too crazy for Taysom.
Greg, this is always a dark portion of the show for a certain segment of our listeners. It was once the throne of ease. It's not so easy in New England anymore.
Sleazy.
It's pretty sleazy. In fact, let's head to Gillette.
Snap to Jones. Washington brings forward. Pressure up the middle. Throws over the center of the field. That was popped up the air and picked off. It is picked off. Quan Martin at the 32-yard line. And Washington's going to get a win in New England.
They had not had a turnover yet. There you go. They get it, and it is the young guy, Quan Martin. All right, game over.
All right. Brian Weinstein and Julie Donaldson with the call WBIG. Yes. Mac Jones threw that interception to, what'd you say, Guam, Martin?
Quan.
I'm seeing it as Jartivius in a different spot.
That's his nickname, though, or he goes by that, yeah.
All right. Well, good job by Mr. Martin, whose interception helped hold off the Patriots 20-17. It is the first game, obviously, for the Commanders after trading away both Young and Sweaty. And it is a game in which Mac Jones was outplayed by Sam Howell, who threw for 325 yards and a game-tying touchdown. Marc Sessler, what was going on there today?
Patriots made it interesting out of the gate.
This was a game that happened, huh, Mark?
Well, it was a slightly flavorless game, to be honest.
Yes.
But the Patriots kind of just did Patriots things from wire to wire. But I thought you got the best throw of Mac Jones' season.
What are Patriots? When you say that, what does that mean?
This year, dull to the eyes, not productive, not a lot of inspiration on offense. They cracked through that with the throw I just mentioned, though.
Got it.
A touchdown to Hunter Henry was the kind of throw that makes you believe in Mac Jones, but then he's going to go do things later in the game that erase that belief to some degree. Ramondre Stevenson had a 64-yard run for a touchdown, and Jalen Reagor and Cole Strange on that. You got to watch this, some great blocking on that. And so it's like the Patriots were hanging around, but I think for me, I come out of this game that, yes, Washington, move on from those defensive linemen, move on and away from this season spiritually and probably their head coach, but I kind of believe in Sam Howell. I know we've sort of seen evidence week after week, but he was doing some wild stuff in this game where it's like he just seems to see the field in a certain way, do stuff kind of off schedule, and then has the daring do to whip the ball where he wants to, and some incredible things unfurled in this. I thought that, this is a classic, Bill Belichick will take someone like Sam Howell and put him in a blender, but I think the opposite happened, where he made enough kind of throws and unpredictable in certain terms of not what you'd expect where he'd go with the ball, and it was successful. And I come away at least believing in their passing game and believing in what he can do in every possible way.
The problem is the odds on him having the same coordinator next year.
I don't think that
really small.
I don't think that will really matter though. I don't think.
Why not?
I don't think that's because I don't think this is like a Washington.
How about this? How about this? From this
I
perspective,
think it's really well coached.
If we all agree that, and I know the Commanders, and I think a large portion of their fan base, if not all of them, see this kid as somebody with an actual future at this point, that he could be a guy for them, you got to make decisions that put him in the best position to be successful. So, I know after the young and sweaty trade, the idea is that we're heading towards a cleaning of the house. But, what if they keep winning and they hang around in the NFC playoff race? Is it actually not the house cleaning that's coming and the changes behind the scenes? And maybe that's more, if they actually really do think they might have something here, that kind of changes a lot around how you view where they're going.
Well, it also could potentially, if they really played well offensively, be a candidacy for Eric Bieniemy to just stay and Ron Rivera goes. I like
that better. Where, you're not losing
picked upstairs.
You're not losing OC every week. I mean, I think he seems to thrive. I know he had a terrible interception in this game too, and that's going to come when you're young and you're just beginning to do all this. But on 3rd and long in certain situations, he just uses his legs. He got them out of jams. Certain throws, the situation never seems too big to him. And the deeper the hole they're in, it's he's the kind of quarterback that gets you out of it. And he did it a number of times today.
I just think that the Patriots are so sloppy. They special teams penalties. They benched J.C. Jackson and Jack Jones to start the game and won't say why. That when you said Patriots.
Well,
things,
Belichick just said they played
but they one sat out the first 2 or 3 drives and the other sat out the entire first quarter, and they wouldn't say why. They're the usual starters. It's probably some punishment that he doesn't want to talk about, and just it's a lot of that. And then the game ends with a good enough pass from Mac Jones, a pretty good pass actually, into a very tight window. And I saw something on Patriots.com that he threw into tight windows something 3 times as much as Sam Howell, because other offenses actually create open receivers, but the Patriots don't have the players or the scheme to do so. And Juju Smith-Schuster is one of the worst free agent signings this team's ever had. It goes off his hands to lose the game. Pretty fitting.
Well, and before that, 4 straight punts. They can't get out of their own way, even in a game where they had some of their better plays early on.
Jeff Howe reported that both Jackson and Jones entered the game late due to performance issues, and neither of them seem very happy. The vibes are not good, and the Patriots are 2-7 for the first time since Bill Belichick's first season as head coach way back in 2000. And they're also winless in non-division games. They're the only team in the NFL without a win outside their division. Rough times. Let's take a break, and then we'll finish out the games. All right, we're going to keep moving on here. And, after the incredible C.J. Stroud performance, boys, I X'd this. Still doesn't work. I tweeted, hey, this, in the late window, this would be a good day for our guy Bryce Young to throw a couple touchdown passes and have a nice little day. And it's not going to be 5 touchdowns and 470 yards, but don't fall on your face and make a uncomfortable situation worse.
Second down and 8. They have it at the Colts 34-yard line. Colts 20, Panthers 10. 13:51 to go here in the fourth quarter. Play action. Bryce Young throws it left side, and it's picked off by the Colts. They're running the other way with it. It's Kenny Moore again. He's at the 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! 2 of them today. A pick 6 by Kenny Moore. Touchdown! INDY. Number 23. Have a day. It's 26-10.
And you see the shot on the telecast of Bryce Young pulling the chin strap off, walking dejectedly back to the sideline. He threw 2 pick sixes to Kenny Moore at home on Sunday in Charlotte. And the Colts cruise to a 27-13 win that snaps a 3-game losing streak for the Colts and gets them, back in the AFC playoff hunt. Greggy, you tell me where you want to start. We could look at from the Bryce Young side of things, or we could talk some Colts here.
I want to set up where that pick 6 came from, because it was 20-10 at that point. Young had probably the worst half of football, definitely, that I had seen him play. 7 for 14 for 34 yards in the first half. Holding the ball too long, had the pick 6.
How was the play calling? I know we've had a change in play callers.
Not much positive was happening. When you're 7 for 14 for 35 yards, just holding the ball and nothing down the field. And then they came out for the second half. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, okay, let's show up in the second half. Had one of their best drives of the year, I would have said. It wasn't all Bryce Young. It was a running game too. 15 plays, get a touchdown, get a stop. Then he hits a 50-yarder to Hayden Hurst. We're cooking here.
Okay.
And that was the moment that he threw that pick six. So the air just completely went out of the stadium, and I couldn't help but thinking, man, was that a play where the height did come into play? Because it was a screen pass. You just never expect a pick six on a screen pass. And the play was blown up a little early, like the timing was off, but there were multiple defenders and offensive players in between, and he threw, he hit like a 4-iron when you needed a pitching wedge, to go up nice and high over the thing and have a nice touch pass.
That was good. And you're an old caddy, aren't you?
I was the guy in the bag room that would wash the guys' clubs.
Well, that's not. That is
exactly the caddy.
You wash the balls in the back room.
Also, yeah, the clubhouse attendant. Also, if it was raining, you go to the bottom of the hill and you drive the guys up the hill who don't have their own carts, or maybe you hold the umbrella.
The rich guys,
stuff like that. Yes. Bryce Young. I mean, I don't think he's going to be working at a golf course or anything like that. I'm not as worried about him
at this pace.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not as worried about him as you. I certainly, don't think it's a big deal to me. I know it's uncomfortable for Panthers fans, but I've seen enough that I'm not worried about him having like a solid NFL career. I've seen high picks look like so much worse than him. I can see it. Everything around him is bad, but it's also obvious that Stroud and even Richardson, when he was in there, showed really special stuff to get more.
Clarify. I'm not saying that I feel like they have a bust on their hands. But it just stinks. I mean, it stinks for everybody connected to that building right now.
I mean, they beat C.J. Stroud and the Texans literally last week.
I think you factored that game in too. I thought he looked good in that game, and he gave me evidence that he can do it. I think it's compared to what we saw C.J. Stroud do in front of a national audience today. Like the Colts end with 5 scoreless drives, and you take away the 2 pick sixes, and the Panthers are right in this.
The Colts didn't even top 200 yards. I mean, Minshew. They had a couple drives early in this game where Taylor got going. They went field goal, touchdown, field goal in the second quarter. They only had 4 drives in the first half. After that, they did absolutely nothing. The Panthers' defense played well enough for them to win, and they didn't. It's tough. This was his worst game, Bryce Young. Even if you took away the pick sixes, I would say this might have been his worst game.
And I think that part of it is the disappointment, too, that it did seem set up well for him to take the next step today after having that nice win last week, and you're at home against a struggling Colts team, and it doesn't work out. So
Colts have a chance here, by the way. They're 4-5. They've got the Patriots in Frankfurt next week on NFL Network there.
Have fun with that.
I think they only play 2 winning teams the rest of the season.
What?
Mark.
Being us?
No, Germany, you get try to stay awake watching the Patriots.
I mean, that's an old rivalry. Manning Brady. Remember, I'm sure we'll see some nice ones. I think they had the second easiest record based on strength of schedule the rest of the way, the Colts. So they're not totally out of it either.
They just can't get in their own way because they feel like they're prone to get in their own way a couple more times.
I don't think they're built or special enough in any area, and with Minshew as their quarterback, to win enough of those games. They'll probably more go 8-9, something like that. But they do have a chance.
Hey, moving on. You can only play your schedule. And you don't ask for, you don't give anything back or say, oh, you shouldn't, put too much into this game. No, forget about that because everything evens out. But the Browns had the Cardinals today, and they also got Clayton Tune. And the Browns in that situation absolutely should dominate. And that they did, my friend.
Deshaun Watson under center, hands it to Hunt, running right side, had some blockers.
3 dudes in the backfield there.
Forces his way in for a touchdown. Kareem Hunt on a 3-yard touchdown run. He's 3rd of the season. And the Cleveland Browns now have a 26-0 lead.
And for Kareem Hunt now, he has scored in 4 straight games for the Browns. That's 4 straight with a rushing touchdown, the longest active streak in the NFL.
That was very informational. Where's Siciliano? I want to know.
He's on NFL Fast Channel this morning. That's where he is.
Paul Keels with that call with Nathan Segura, WKRK. The Cleveland Browns got Deshaun Watson back in the lineup, and he threw 2 touchdown passes. And then they leaned on a defense that once again dominated in a 27-0 win over the Cardinals. Mark, it is the first Browns shutout since
Man, I'd have to go back to maybe even Bill Belichick in 1994.
No, it wasn't. Well, I don't think it was that far back. I will get
92?
back. First shutout since 2007. And you got Watson back. How did Watson back? We'll get to the defense in a bit.
I think one thing that's been like consistent with that offense is that I thought Amari Cooper's sort of shown chemistry with anyone who's in there to some degree, and there was a great 59-yard pass from Watson to Cooper. Some good things, a little bit better than what we've seen from Watson. I also just felt that there were a couple plays where it was like, did this guy like work with anyone in the offseason on like his? I just seen like the Deshaun Watson of old. Like there was some weird footwork in this where he's just throwing the ball off. Just didn't look like Deshaun Watson, the guy that we knew. And so it was better than like the ugliest aspects we've seen from Watson. A little bit of an uptick, but I don't trust him right now.
Well, he'll have a tough test next week against Baltimore. We'll get to that during the week. I'm with you, by the way. You've been talking about Cooper all season, and it's one of those, like, Cooper's had really great seasons mixed in with lesser. I don't know why that is, but if he was on a better offense, like, he would be putting up 1,400
And this
yards.
He's made plays every week.
Another helmet ricochet touchdown, which I've never seen before.
This was very strange.
And now that he has 2 in the last 2 or 3 weeks,
maybe that's in their playbook at this point.
Well, it was also how they lost last week's game. So I guess helmet ricochets giveth, and helmet ricochets take away.
That's true. I mean, yeah, and got to watch this game, but statistically, Watson looked like he played okay, and the fact that he made it through the game, I feel like you're just trying to get to the point where he's no longer, it's like this soap opera around him week to week. Is he going to play?
I think we're there.
We'll see. If he stays in the lineup and builds off this, we'll see, because we've been saying it all year, Mark. If you can just get solid quarterback play with this defense, you could do damage in the AFC and in that division.
They're 5-3,
and the Cardinals stink. They're 1-8. But again, like they can flex on teams, and that's I think a very interesting game next week against the Ravens, because it's a real gut check for them.
Well, the Ravens totally outclassed them in the first matchup, so I think it's an opportunity for Cleveland to suggest who they actually are. This defense, though, and yes, it was the perfect situation where Clayton Tune is just simply not ready to play. The team is broken down post Josh Dobbs. They were out yardage 326 to 58.
No. What? That's a typo.
No.
They had 58 yards?
58.
If I know Mark.
The entire game?
58 total yards. They had. They were 1 for 12 on third down. Like I wrote down, you just don't see games like this. I don't recall. This is like destroying your younger brother in Madden or some sort of computer outpost.
If I know you, Mark, and I would have been the same way, so I don't want to project here. I would have been rooting like how those last few Cardinals drives, you're like, don't just get like some random big play. Don't like go on like a 70-yard field goal drive. I want these beautiful, ridiculous stats for the podcast later. They don't deserve to go over 58 yards. Josh, I think it was Dubo of the Associated Press said they're the 14th team since the merger. That's a long time ago to be held under 60 yards.
You know who else was hoping that they weren't going to give up a field goal at the end? People like me that started the Browns in fantasy. You get that 29-point outing. Here's a parallel, Mark, that I want to tell me if you agree. Because we talk about the Dolphins. When they've been playing lesser opponents, they don't just beat them with their offense. They embarrass them. They have that ability. And I'm seeing the same thing with Cleveland's defense, where they have this ability to just level up and really humiliate an opponent. But there are still questions about how that defense plays against big time competition. So again, I do like.
I think that's an ideal.
Matchup.
That's an ideal parallel, because it's like when the Ravens started to crack through and become what they were with their ground game. The first kind of hints of that were lashing Cleveland's defense right up the middle, and I think so. The next week is a big test. But how often does this happen? Shook noted this as well, that 50% of Arizona's 48 plays went for 0 or negative yards. That just doesn't happen in the NFL.
And that's not the first time we've had this type of conversation on a Sunday this year about the Browns. They've done this to a couple of teams now.
Absolutely.
Half the plays went for 0 yards or less.
I would note that their left tackle, Jed Wills, went out with what looked like a very painful knee ankle injury, carted off.
Keep an eye on that.
Marquise Goodwin was hurt. They traded away Donovan Peoples-Jones, so we'll see. I mean, health could be a factor.
But the Browns are 5-3. There's a lot of drama around this team, and there has been for a couple of years, but they're in good position now as they head towards the second half. Let's move now to Lambeau Field, where the Packers are trying to get their mojo back.
Jones in the slot right now. He orbit routes to the left, and they fake the pass to Jones. Swing it over the middle. Musgrave, 10, the end zone. Touchdown! And a dagger! Excellent ball fake by the quarterback, Jordan Love. He found Musgrave wide open at the 10 into the end zone for the touchdown. It's 19-3 Green Bay.
You know, I know it's different when you're beating up on Brett Rippon in the Rams as opposed to Matthew Stafford. But again, like with the Browns, the Packers needed a game like this. A nice rocking chair win, take care of business, which they did 20-3 over the Rams, snapping a 4-game losing streak. Yes, you had the dagger there, as explained by Wayne Larrabee of WRNW. But you also got Aaron Jones back in the end zone, and I believe that finally they scored a touchdown in the first half, which is something that just has not been happening this year. So, Greg, you tell us if it was a sign of things to come or just catching an opponent at the right time at home.
I lean toward the latter. Look, they ran for 184 yards. Aaron Jones and Dillon combined for 113. Like, for them, that's an explosion. And some of that was early. But Brett Rippon and the Rams offense was essentially non-functional. Even on Jordan Love's best play of the game, which was a deep shot to Watson on that game, ceiling drive. Although at that point it was 13-3, and it felt like the Rams weren't going to possibly get to double digits at any point in this game. Christian Watson skies up for a pass to catch a 37-yarder. Wow, they finally hit a deep shot, especially after Jordan Love missed Watson, who was wide open earlier in the game. He underthrew him, and Watson hurt his back and his chest.
Oh, no.
And was in the concussion protocol all in one play. So it was like even on your best play of the game, there was something to be upset about. And there was like a lot of sloppy offensive play by Green Bay to keep this more of a game than it should have. It was 10-3 still entering the fourth quarter. So I didn't come away too excited, except for
you didn't sound excited when.
Sorry, Packers fans, I tried.
Sorry,
but hey, listen, that's what I was wondering about.
Yeah, the defense dominated. I told Mark, I said if there was one game to not watch so far of all the games this year, this would be my choice so far.
We haven't gotten to Giants Raiders yet, but yeah.
But that's sort of like,
I want to see Giants Raiders. I don't know why. Aiden O'Connell or whatever.
It's the opposite of what we think November football is, because it's like if you're the Rams, you've lost your starting running back. You're stuck with Brett Rippon at quarterback. It's just like...
You did it again.
That's how I'll always call him that.
Yeah, you're handing off to Royce Freeman. I mean...
Ripien.
You can get a...
I think it was his dad is literally Super Bowl MVP.
I know, but I've been calling him Ripien since like... the early 90s. So.
It's weird because
that's how I see it with the way it's spelled.
I'm remembering you calling him Ripien over and over again, and this is back in Culver City.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised Brett Ripien has been in our life that long.
Ripien. How much more Brett Ripien do we need to see, by the way? There's got to be somebody better.
Well, yeah, they thought John Wolford, I think, was better, and the Bucs wouldn't let him off.
They also did draft a quarterback who was winning national titles in Georgia, and that hasn't
there's some
worked out.
There.
Well, yeah, he's not available, and so that was their plan. That was maybe a questionable plan to begin with, but it's not working. And McVay didn't help him by going run, pass, seemingly every
can't do that
drive. And
that's the old Nate Hackett move. It
right,
does not work with a quarterback you're trying to hide. You just end up putting him in worse.
Exactly.
You're trying to protect him and the team, but you end up putting him in worse situations in it.
Hi, my name's Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's nice to see you out
here. It's okay to throw on first down, pal.
Okay, let's come up with one positive thing about the Packers and then move on. Who is their guy, Carrington? Oh, Carrington Valentine, their cornerback who started. They traded Rasul Douglas. Like, he looked quite good this game, so maybe they knew what they were doing there, inserting a young player. And Jair Alexander played really well and said that he feels healthier than he has all year. So maybe
and I'll throw one more out there. Why not?
A little better. Let's give him something.
Wide receiver, Dontavian Wicks, 4 for 49. They need somebody else to step up, especially if Watson misses time.
But he was...
dang, Greg. I'm trying...
Look, he had the most Packers play
Big
possible.
funk behind the glass. I'm trying, bud.
He was reaching for a first down. You know the play I'm talking about, Randy, at the beginning of the second half when it was only 7-3, and he dives for the first down, and he just slams it on the ground, and he hits the ground, and then the Rams just pick up the ball. No one had touched him at that point, so that was a fumble.
It's absurd.
So, yeah.
And finally, let's give the floor over to one of the great actors of his or any generation who's finally asking the question that apparently everyone has been sitting on quietly. Samuel L. Jackson tweeted, "At what point do we start the Rams coaching conversation? Double question mark, double slammer, viewed over 500,000 times as of a couple hours ago." Is that a thing?
I don't know. But if I'm like Sean McVay, it's
Wait a second.
Oh, no.
Sammy Jackson throwing out a flashpoint focus?
I don't think that.
Sam L. himself?
This is not the year for it, Sam.
I don't think that he's.
This is not. I love that he's invested enough in the Rams that he's acting like an irrational fan. Because I think the most
Bring up
irrational.
the tweet again.
The most irrational of Rams fans that are too emotional in the middle of a game. Maybe they're sending out that type of tweet.
Well, you never know what else is going on.
Not
there.
one that I trust his football acumen, but you know.
It's the wording that I enjoy, and also that his avatar is a picture of him with a very serious face. At what point do we start the Rams coaching conversation? Somebody had to say it.
A group convo that he's part of with a bunch of people discussing.
It's truly brutal because the Rams, they could be in the mix. They should have been winning this. This was a great case for Matthew Stafford to make the Pro Bowl this year, because the difference between him and Brett Ripien is them either winning this game.
You don't do it too.
Oh wait, now I'm doing it.
I love it, Greg.
We are a professional podcast here. His father won the Super Bowl MVP. One of the great teams of that era. The 1992 Redskins were a super underrated team, and they stomped the Buffalo
They destroyed people the entire way.
Best Samuel L. Jackson film, Mark,
Pulp
or
Fiction
performance.
For me, Pulp Fiction, Jules.
I mean, now that's all I'm going with. What else am I going to go with?
You could go with the Jackie Brown character he played. Real
Great
scoundrel.
Jackie Brown. He is a scoundrel.
How about Wait, what was the shark one? Deep Blue Sea?
No, probably not that one. But I can't say the full line because I can't. But one of my favorite lines in all of Quentin Tarantino universe is when he says, "Bully for you." Or was it "Bully to you"? Bully for you.
For you, I believe.
I can't finish it, but it was like a great delivery.
Yeah, I think
and
people probably
classic
know
Sam.
what the next few words.
Classic Samuel L.
Jackie Brown would be a good choice, yeah.
All right. And Deep Blue Sea, you could throw it out there. It's one of his
Against
more
the grain.
populist works, but all right. One more before Sunday Night Football. We got to talk about it. Giants Raiders.
O'Connell
That's
is
what we
under
do here.
center. He gives it to Jacobs.
Every game.
Following the offensive lineman.
This has got
at
way
the
more
goal
juice
line.
than Rams
The
Packers.
ball is loose, but they call it a touchdown.
Way more.
You'll have to
Josh
watch it and tell
Jacobs
me if
reached it over
you
the
felt
goal
juice.
line before it popped out of his hands. His second rushing touchdown of the day. And the Robertson pick is a Jacobs touchdown. And it's 20-0 here late in the second.
Yeah.
It's on New York City. It's on
We take out that fork, Dan. I mean,
Yeah, well, I think it's time.
City.
If they didn't blow that game last week, I thought they had a chance to make some noise. But also, there are a couple other factors going on with the Giants right now. By the way, I was in Vegas this morning. I was there over the weekend. I checked out the U2 show at the Sphere, which was incredible. It's the only good thing James Dolan's ever done. Great time. I loved it. And there were a lot of Giants fans flying into Vegas over the weekend. And as I'm watching that game, I'm like, oh, my God. People spent a lot of money to go to this game, which was a easy 30-6 win for the Raiders. And remember, this is the Raiders that are in absolute tumult. They call it the dead cat bounce. It's a temporary uptick in, I guess, some stock performance, but also in the case of sports teams. They'll probably go back to stinking next week, maybe, probably. But with a new head coach, the Raiders, Antonio Pierce, shout out to you, buddy. Congratulations. Your first win. A new offensive coordinator. They didn't name a new general manager yet, but he gone. And a new quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. They easily take care of business with Josh Jacobs not averaging 4 yards a carry, because we can't do that. But he did have 2 touchdowns as they jumped out to a 24-0 halftime lead. So the Raiders, almost impossibly, like under the, you just think they must be a train wreck based on all the reporting. We'll get to a little of the Josh McDaniels drama that dropped this morning. They're 4-5 and somehow in the mix in the AFC. I'm not saying they're a team to take seriously, but they're better than the Giants, who are 2-7. Yes, forked. They're out. I apologize for keeping them alive.
No, this is not a Jeff Saturday scenario where like the bump in their first game was like, well, that can't possibly last. I don't know what will happen here, but Antonio Pierce, who Mark Davis got to know better over the during this season, has the locker room. Like we can get into the Josh McDaniels stuff, but it's like, I think in a way this is like kind of like a lot of vented frustration. We've all in our lives like had bad leadership over us, and like it can suppress you. And I think like this is a team with talented players. They've had it all along. It's just been such a hot mess that their record isn't a joke to me or a fraud from who they really can be. And it's like, I don't know, in a weird bottom half of the AFC, I kind of think this coaching switch came at the exact right time and saved a lot of worse stuff from happening. They did not play a very good team today.
I mean, this is an all-time fired coach principle. It's Brad Spicer, the Spice Rack's favorite. I mean, he locks it in. To have this, like taking Josh McDaniels away as the fired coach principle, it's like an extra bounce, because
yes.
they were trying to say that they weren't celebrating at practice, but they all seemed kind of like they were celebrating. And it's crazy that they hadn't scored 20 points in a game all season. It had been the longest streak of not scoring 20 points in a game in Raiders history, other than a Jamarcus Russell stretch. So they won't break that. And they had 24 points at halftime. I mean, you kind of can't make these kind of things up. The biggest halftime lead they had before this game, Dan, was 2010. It was against the Denver Broncos. Was the last time they had a halftime lead this big. Do you know who the coach of the Denver Broncos at the time of the Raiders having that big of a halftime lead?
Josh McDaniels.
Josh freaking McDaniels.
How about that?
You can't write this.
Can't. Not a guy that's going to get another head coaching job. That's just my theory. I don't know if it's true or not.
I think it's a solid theory.
There was a report. It was reported by Ian, but also came from all different directions. So this was something that was not a well-kept secret, that the Josh McDaniels firing came after a revolt against him. Like, remember the John Voight character in Varsity Blues, where they all revolted against him before the big game. Like, where it was a team meeting, this from Ian and others, in which everyone took turns basically venting and getting emotional and angry with McDaniels and how he goes about communicating, practicing, everything about him. And it went so far from where McDaniels thought it was going to go that he actually waved in Antonio Pierce at one point to kind of almost stand up for him or the coaching staff rather than face the music. And then in that Thursday practice ahead of the Monday night game, it was reported that he was like a ghost, basically, and he wasn't even really coaching the team, and he wasn't correcting anything. And sure enough, they get beat up on Monday Night Football, and he's gone the next day. That's we've heard a lot of crazy stories about things. You feel like you've heard it all at this point, but just the way that has been reported and explained, that is a crazy ending to Josh McDaniels' head coaching career in the NFL. And Pierce is obviously a guy with no experience, and there's not a lot of talent on this roster, but they now are completely free of that dark cloud, and they're playing free and easy, obviously. At least they were on Sunday.
Well, I mean, Jay Glazer's particular nugget that Pierce brought up, the Giants team back in 2007, saying, like, no matter who we played, we thought we could beat them. We had a game plan to beat them. Like, it's all about self-belief, no matter what situation you're in. And then after he finishes the speech, that McDaniels goes up to him and says, "Don't ever talk about the Patriots like that." I mean, that's just...
I mean, he cited
well,
the
I thought you were also building up to it. And you know who was the play caller of that team?
Yeah, but no.
Josh McDaniels.
The fact that if this is true, and this is where I almost start to feel bad, like he's getting piled on, and I don't doubt the truth of the story, but man, that makes him look
it's bad.
Small in that moment.
Yeah, crazy.
I mean, Brian Dable's not having a great coaching situation.
No,
here either,
we're
so-
burying the lead here somewhat. I mean, actually, the Raiders winning that big in Antonio Pierce's first game is big, but Daniel Jones going down with the knee injury that looks like a potential torn ACL is just a really sad way for this already really sad Giants season to get even deeper.
And listen,
in the hole.
the Jones thing was really a tough watch too because of what happened. Like Tyrod Taylor's on IR. We know Tommy DeVito is a guy that really has no business playing in the NFL, and they wouldn't even let him pass against the Jets last week. So Jones takes a shot on his knee, and he just missed a bunch of time, and he knows there's a lot of pressure on him after he signs the contract. He stays in the game, which is a credit to him, and he drops back to pass, and when he plants his back leg, he just collapses. And he limps to the 10, and now we're hearing that it's a potentially serious injury. It's probably the end of his season. And, this is in terms of disaster seasons, I don't think there's any team that from what they thought of themselves on September 1st to where they are now on November 5th, like you can't even script the worst case scenario to a Giant fan. They wouldn't believe you that it could be as bad as it has been. And I don't know what happens the rest of the way. I don't know how many wins they have. Certainly, you fork him here, but now you got to realize that Tyrod's out of the picture with a rib injury that had him in the hospital for a couple of days. Daniel Jones is out for the year, and you don't have anybody now to hold down the fort. They could be heading towards a top 3 pick now.
Well, you cannot stick like this version of Tommy DeVito into the lineup. It just doesn't even seem vaguely safe. Like I don't know if
unless you're trying to,
Well, I don't know.
There's some interesting franchises now with a chance for that 1 pick. Giants, Patriots.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else really to share from this game. I was happy as a local New Jersey kid. DeVito did throw a touchdown late in this game that avoided the shutout. Now he could always say I threw a touchdown, but like this guy shouldn't be starting games in the NFL, and they don't have another option on the roster right now. So
I mean, I wonder if this is when Carson Wentz returns to our lives, or someone like that, because it's like this is just if you're Brian Dable, you can't coach your way out
the
of
only
this
thing that could make their season more depressing is if Carson Wentz becomes their quarterback the rest of the way. But
I don't disagree, but
they're a proud organization, and maybe they will make a move like that just to try to.
Don't you have to
make it to the finish line?
These 2 quarterbacks, Drake May and Caleb Williams, are quite intriguing. That I think some of these teams that are buried.
You just ride it out?
You just DeVito it out here. I mean, it reminds me so much.
You never go full DeVito.
It reminds me so much of Ben McAdoo's second season. I mean, Ben McAdoo, people kind of forget, went to the playoffs like Brian Dable, went 11-5, actually better than Brian Dable, and didn't make it to the end of year 2. Now, there's not as much like off the field bumbling and, rough press conferences from Dable, and I don't think there's any chance he would get fired. But
He's the reigning coach of the year.
It's very similar, though.
It's crazy.
It's very similar to how McAdoo's first 2 years.
I mean, he's back and having that terrible luck with the health of his players that the previous coach had.
Yeah, I kind of remember Joe Judge being somewhat popular after the first year, even though they didn't have success, and then that thing went sideways. It's been a really rough run for the Giants since that last Super Bowl. All right, next up and finally. A huge, titanic AFC Sunday Night Football matchup.
Big 3rd down and 7 play coming up. Williams in the game. He lines up to the left of Joe Burrow. Joe has the ball. Under pressure. Dumps it off short. Caught. Drew Sample has a first down to the 10. The 5 toward the pylon. He's in. Touchdown.
Beautiful.
Bengals. Drew Sample. Catching a short pass from Joe Burrow and doing the rest on a 22-yard TD.
I mean, Drew Sample's just going to make you miss.
That's how it works.
That's what they say.
That's what Drew Sample does. Dan Horde with the call WCKY. It was a showdown of AFC Titans. Only one could be victorious. And unfortunately for our producer, Eric Roberts, it was the Cincinnati Bengals who came out ahead with a 24-18 win. The Bengals now, after their slow start, have really solidified themselves in the AFC. They're now 5-3, and man, that is going to be a great division race with the Baltimore Ravens. The Buffalo Bills, meanwhile, fall to 5-4. How about that? 4 losses now here as we reach the midway point. Not a lot of people would have predicted that. And Mark, the Bengals got a little dicey at the end. They needed a conversion after a late Bills score and 2-point conversion to put this game away. But they were clearly, again, we're the better team, just like they were in January's playoffs.
Yeah, I didn't feel like immense tension around what the end result would be. They went into a few corners here, but what I love is when Buffalo comes storming back, they make it 24-18, that Burrow and the Bengals turn around, and Burrow hits that 32-yard shot to Tyler Boyd to essentially set the table for Joe Mixon to seal the game. And it's like, I just trust this passing offense right now to do it, where it's like, it's not so much a negative thing on the Buffalo Bills, but it's just like this version of Cincinnati and this version of Joe Burrow. They detonated the Niners a week ago. They're the one team that has shown the DNA to be able to beat both Kansas City and Buffalo. And here we go. We're sailing away.
I mean, I love it's 3.5.
And we're locking things up.
We are locking things up.
Ooh, nice.
We never.
And the West
We
Brothers.
didn't even discuss it along with the West Brothers because there was no
Another one.
sense of drama around it. We knew it would happen.
And one more. I love that call, Mark.
Not over yet.
I'm glad you brought it up because so many teams would have opted to try to milk as much of the clock as possible, maybe run it twice, and then all of a sudden it's 3rd and 6, and you're on your own end, and then who knows what happens. But instead, and Greg, as they so often do, Zach Taylor says, Joe, you are the man. We trust you. And if you can throw a 30-yard out here, hit it.
It's crazy because it's not like it was like a safe pass or a play action pass or anything. So it was just a straight drop back, and that's how we're going to start our 3.5 minute drill, 4 minute kill the clock. They haven't run the ball great for much of this season, and they didn't tonight, but they were able to in that last spot when they absolutely needed to get a first down. But to me, it's just like, what do you do with Joe Burrow? Seeing these two games back-to-back, where last week you could argue was one of the best games any quarterback's played all season, this wasn't quite there. 31 for 44, 348, and 2 touchdowns, because it wasn't as spectacular, but it wasn't that far off. Like, the Bills had no answers because when they blitzed him, and there was the whole thing years ago, like, you can't blitz Joe Burrow. You can't blitz Joe Burrow. He's gonna cook you up. And then earlier this season when he couldn't move, you could blitz Joe Burrow. So what did they do early this game? They blitzed him quite a bit, and he was always getting rid of the ball. I'm thinking of one where they dove right at his feet. He gets out of the play, makes the play. Second reaction to T. Higgins. There, even the play where Drew Sample scores the touchdown. But when they don't try to blitz, the Bills don't really have a pass rush. Von Miller's not right. Russo, it wasn't happening. And when you leave him back there, he picks you apart. And that was where he got the big play to chase too, is when they don't rush more than 4. So when he's like this, it's just like, it's Tom Brady-like, it's Montana-like, it's whatever. He's just throwing dots all over the field.
He's that special. And again, we talked about it after the Niners wipeout. He is obviously healthy now. He had another scramble in this game, Greg, and I think you're right. And what they talked about in the offseason about some of his training, he's moving so well. This is a guy that had a fairly serious calf injury that blew out his knee in a gnarly way as a rookie, and yet he's never looked more spry. And when you put it all together, the level of confidence he plays with, the actual physical ability, I mean, we locked it up, and I felt confident because I just think Burrow in that building in primetime is pretty much going to beat anybody, including the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, there was, when you talk about his confidence, because we've seen that. I think you saw it visibly on his face against the Niners, just this relief that his body was back. And there was a point tonight on a 3rd and 6, and this is what triggered a field goal. They didn't score here, but Burrow had this incredible, quick release shot to T. Higgins that went down to the Buffalo 7, 1st and goal. But that throw and that connection and the way he threw the ball, it's like, to your point, I think last week was the best quarterback performance we've seen all year. But tonight there were elements of the same thing. Maybe it wasn't as complete a dominant performance. It was a little bit more up and down. But I can think of one underthrow deep to Chase. But other than that, he is doing things on a weekly basis where it's like, this is the quarterback of the AFC right now for me.
Well, you're also getting Higgins involved. This was T. Higgins' best game of the
Mahomes
season.
is like, what?
Well, no, I don't mean career-wise, but if you look at the two quarterbacks, Burrow right now in the last 2 weeks is like a sizzling watch.
Sure.
You're saying who's playing the best at this very moment.
At this very moment. I don't.
You had to take one quarterback for one game
next week?
Josh Dobbs.
Getting Higgins involved 8 for 110. He hasn't been doing anything this season. You got Tyler Boyd, who's finally making big plays again. And then there is something about this defense, and I know they gave up the late touchdown, but there was like a stat Paul Dehner at The Athletic had that, over the last 2 years under, Captain Lou Anarumo, they were 21% better than any other team in goal-to-go situations. And I'm going to extend that out into the red zone here where they get the fumble on Dalton Kincaid and the Bills have another drive that comes up short. And there is something, if you look at like this last month, where they look like the Bengals defense. And to me, the Bengals defense is like not amazing between the 20s, but they just have a knack for locking it down, and they coach it up well once it gets near the goal line and limiting points.
And that fumble doesn't happen without Jermaine Pratt punching
And he's
it out.
always
Wasn't
he's
a-
always one of those
right.
guys. Yep.
And I'll use some Paul Dehner reporting as well. He does great work for The Athletic. And this is a testament to Captain Lou, of course, Joe Burrow, but Greg, and our ongoing discourse around Zach Taylor. This is all under Zach Taylor's watch, that they are the best team in football over the past 3 years when it comes to putting games away. When they score first, they are now, after tonight, 21-2 in the last 3 years. And they have that ability, again, like we were talking about, it's kind of a little bit of the theme of the show today. The teams that know how to take care of business, even when they're not playing at their best, and just kind of grind out wins. Those 3 teams are the Bengals, the Eagles, the Chiefs. Those are 1, 2, 3 in this metric. And, like, they're just in a very good place right now. And it's funny because earlier we were talking about the Ravens and who's better than the Ravens right now, and you can make the case nobody. The fact that they're in the same division and only one team is going to be able to come out of there with the home game and potentially a bye, that is the best division race in football as we look ahead to the second.
Well, all 4 of the teams in the division would be in the playoffs as of this moment.
But I don't know, maybe you disagree, but I think we have no disrespect to the Steelers and Browns, but there's a very different vibe between Bengals, Ravens to me than the other 2 teams.
Well, I think like Cincinnati, like everything that we thought about them changed in the last couple of weeks. And like Cleveland's got an excellent defense. I think their offense is very up and down. The Steelers obviously are an up and down team. Like, yes, Bengals, Ravens and they play in a couple weeks, is essentially like this sort of ultra clash waiting to happen.
And this is a huge test of the Sean McDermott era and defense. Right now, there's nothing about their defense that's special. And they lose Terrell Bernard early in this game. We know they've lost Milano and Daquan Jones and Tre'Davious White, and they're not getting those guys back. It's a long season. Right now, they're really ordinary, especially on defense. On offense, they're good. They're not quite good enough, and they're certainly not consistent running the ball enough to make up for it. But they just don't make sense if they're an ordinary defense. But they are the Bills. They do have Josh Allen. The DNA's all in there. And there's a million teams over the last 10 years in NFL history that were kind of blah after 9 weeks. And so I think they have a chance to be a different team by the time they get to the playoffs, but they're not that team right now. And they can't take on too many L's.
Here's another kind of ongoing conversation we had going into the season, that the feeling that this is such an important season for the Bills, not because they don't have another chance to win the Super Bowl. They have Josh Allen, but like this core, this group of Bills, like I sense again that this team is just, I don't know, Eric, behind the glass, you are a hardcore Bills fan. Like, do you have a level of confidence at this point when they face these fellow titans of the league that I feel like in the last couple of years, you probably always felt pretty good going into a game like this. Have you been shaken confidence-wise at this point?
No, this season's different. I don't know. There's something missing, and every point's like there's a second piece missing on the offense, and we were kind of hoping that was Kincaid, and he's kind of come around the last 2 weeks, especially with Knox, being out with the wrist injury.
He's looked good.
Tough fumble, but what are you gonna do? That's
10 catches.
That's a big play by the Bengals defense. But no, it's a hard watch. Like, they always sneak in this last little touchdown to make it kind of close at the end. That kind of makes the box scores a little better. They did against Jaguars. They came out on the right side of the Giants game. This one, again, Josh Allen kind of went down. They went for 2, made it look better on the box score, but there's something is not there.
It's been a frustrating watch.
Yeah, and I think Kincaid is a great development, and it was, that was the hope even in the summer. But it almost tonight came in replace of, like, until the end, Stephon Diggs had a massive touchdown and 2-point conversion. But largely taken away. Gabe Davis taken away. Like, you're leaning on different people, but they're not special characters. And so I look at Kincaid's night and be like, I like that, but it's like the Bills can't work themselves out of a corner with so many weapon-rich layers like the Bengals can.
For as much crap that Josh Allen got for doing the hero ball stuff, even that's not really there. Like that he had a weird interception that he just kind of missed the throw today. He overthrew something.
He made some great throws today too, and that's why there's reason for hope.
But those plays were there in the back.
Well.
Yeah, I mean, you know what he can be, but something is missing. I don't know if it's Dorsey and the play calling, but that's
he seemed healthy at least.
Yeah,
the shoulder was a concern going into.
You don't want him getting 44 of your 68 rushing yards. We are kind of back to we need Josh Allen to run, and one thing I like, the schedule makers. All these teams seem to be playing each other down the stretch. The Bills have a couple easy games, but then they have an at Philly. They got another an at Kansas City coming up. So all these teams are playing each other coming up.
The Bills being in third place at the midway point was not what we predicted, and the Jets and Chargers play on Monday night. If the Jets can find a way in that game, you got the Dolphins who took a loss at 6-3. The Jets could be 5-3. Bills 5-4. Interesting division going down the stretch. Interesting. Anything else?
Good Sunday. No.
Fun.
Yep.
Good. It's almost like the Germany game and even the Sunday night game. Maybe you wanted a little bit more, but everything in the middle that you weren't expecting as much from.
The middle of the sandwich.
Very nice.
Worked.
And the bread was fine.
Fine.
But it really was. No, it should be the meat.
Right.
Should be those two.
We've now finished eating the sandwich.
Yeah, but the main.
We've lost the sandwich.
The main course.
It's gone.
You know, was Eagles Cowboys, and that delivered.
That was the meat.
That was the meat.
Okay. I think we got that.
It's kind of gross, but.
Why don't you back in on meat, though?
No, it's not. I'm not saying that. Just like.
Remember when Sessler housed that double cheeseburger? We didn't even notice it until he was halfway through it. Chomp, 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 chomp.
It's just like the innards were dripping down his chin.
I don't make those sounds.
He's like, make it bloody as hell. And the waiter's like, yes, sir. It's time to go. Oh, okay. A man after my own heart.
You sound like someone that woke up in Vegas.
Yeah, it's time to go.
15 hours.
Eric, please hit the fucking music. We got to go. All right. Good stuff. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to Eric and Funk behind the glass. Till Monday night, heed the call.